Anderson Business Coaching inspires extraordinary organizational results by engaging the talents of ordinary people. ABC opens the communication links from the top to the bottom of the organization to tap into an untapped reserve of creative ideas and solutions by the people who do the work every day. Secondly, we identify external resources that have the experience and capability to develop systems and processes that the internal staff can manage.
Hi, this is Ray Anderson. Welcome to another episode of Good Hearted Leadership. It's not kumbaya, it's money in the bank. And today I've got the privilege of working with some people that are both my clients and also embody the philosophy of good-hearted leadership, which we have found so important in being able to bring the kind of productivity and other things you need. I'd like to begin by explaining a little bit about who I am and what I do. For 30 years, I've been helping companies get their people right so they can get their company right. And I know that sounds simple, but the fact of the matter is, once you really engage people, you can transform the business. You can make it more productive, you can make it more profitable, and you can make it a lot less error prone. So what I want to do today is I want to take a little bit of time here, explain to you who I'm dealing with, and then invite them to come in. Today I have both Jessica Sanchez and Ray Blom with the Corporate Advocate. I'd like to begin by introducing Ray so he can kind of help us understand how good-hearted leadership help them grow their business and why they're here today to talk about what they've done to embody those principles and make it work. Welcome, Ray.
Thank you, Ray. I appreciate being here. Thank you for having me. The Corporate Advocate, I joined about 8 years ago, and the Corporate Advocate's a 50-year-old plus firm. Mm-hmm. And founder, my partner's father, is now deceased, but his philosophy was that our clients are our annuity. So when we invest back into our clients and help them grow and we educate them and we consult for them, we're always going to have a client. And when they grow and prosper, we're going to grow and prosper with them. So that's been our philosophy, that's what we believe, and that's what we've always embraced. But we also found out during hard times, it's hard for a lot of entrepreneurs to pay for some of those educational and consulting services. Yes. And there was many times where we'd be consulting with our clients and helping them and educating them and knew their financials, because we do taxes and accounting as well, and knew that they really couldn't afford it. After they paid all the employees, they paid all the rent, they paid for the marketing, they paid all the insurances, at the end of the day, they didn't have money to educate themselves and continue to learn to keep growing their business. And that's when we decided we needed to relook at our model, and we saw that insurance and some of those type of residual products would be a great model to partner with to be able to, businesses have to pay for certain things. Sure. Insurance is one of those things. And we saw that if we could partner with the right people that had the same philosophy in the insurance industry, that could help pay for some of our educational and consulting services. And that's where this vibrant young lady comes into play. Jessica Sanchez is our partner in JS Platinum. They're a commercial insurance brokerage. They're one of the most knowledge and innovative insurance brokerages we've ever seen, and that's why we've chosen them as a partner, and we've invested time and passion with them in growing our models, because they embrace that philosophy on that if we reinvest in our clients and they grow, their insurances will grow and everything else that supports them. But we also know that as a business owner, it's hard to know everything, and we don't know what we don't know. So Jessica and her model as an insurance broker and commercial insurance broker is a give back, and she puts her money where her mouth is. So that's kind of how it came to be, and she's our partner, and we believe fully in the model. Like I said, we all have to pay for insurance, but what's it really do for us?
Well, and that's a very good point. I think as I've been able to work in this, it's kind of hard for a company that's already paying insurance and they're looking at maybe using somebody like me, but money's always hard. And the difficult thing is I've worked with clients, it's not that they can't benefit from what I do, but resources being what they are, how do you allocate them to be able to make that happen? So Jessica, if you don't mind, share with us a little bit about how you got into this and how you have effectively differentiated yourself from all the other insurance brokers out there.
Sure. I went back to school, and when I graduated, I said I wasn't going to go into taxes and accounting like the company, my family business. Mm-hmm. Very strong about that. I wanted to do something different. My passion's always been to work with different nonprofits, homeless shelters, food, soup kitchens. Always been passion of mine. So I went and got my sociology and criminology major at Cal State San Marcos. When I was going to school, I had so much time, and I had always worked, even in high school, so idle time, I just needed to do something. And I started working for a firm, an insurance agency in Bonsall. And old man, I mean, love him to death because he was just an old teddy bear. But with his knowledge of insurance, he had so much, and he just had so much to offer. Came in, did his accounting, what I knew best, and he said, "Kid, you need to get out of accounting. I'm going to show you insurance." And I said, "I don't want to do insurance. That's not what I want to do." He says, "Come on, just let me teach you while you're here, and then you make your decision when you leave." And sure enough, you know, I like new challenges. Insurance has such a negative connotation to it. Everyone hates having to pay their insurance. They don't like their insurance broker. You have to pay the money, and you feel, what do you get out of it? And I think what I've learned now since I've graduated is being more of an educational resource for our clients, instead of just having them pay their insurance, see them at their renewal, which is typically what happens when you have an insurance agent. You see them once a year, or if there's a problem, then you're calling them. Sometimes there's large broker fees, and I mean, insurance, it is, think about how many different insurance agents that there are just in California, just in the Inland Empire. There's thousands of us, and if we're all able to survive, that means there's money enough to go around for everyone. And I think the problem is that struggling businesses, we should be more of a resource for them instead of trying to figure out how we can make more money off them. So our model is we are really trying to figure out ways, listen to our clients' needs, struggles. So whether it's safety, whether it's implementing structures for helping them grow their employees to help them grow their business, investing back in them and helping them with those resources. So we have come up with a plan. What we do is we set aside apart some of the money that we get from our clients, and we put it into a fund to help go back towards them as kind of, for us, it's trying to think of
client retention fund.
Client retention fund, so that they are then able to use that money to help them grow or face whatever struggles that they're facing.
And I think much like with your program, Ray, we can refer in a Ray Anderson and say, our clients have a fund and they've identified that they have some gaps with their culture or their systems, and we think that you might be a good fit. Why don't you go talk to one of our clients? And they have that money and fund now that we've set aside to be able to help pay for those types of services. And we found that they light up when they learn that, because for me, I know when I was struggling to get my businesses off the ground, it was almost negative to go see my tax accountant or my consultant or anybody, my insurance guy, because every time I went to see them, it cost me money. And so even though I needed their knowledge and their guidance, I would avoid it at all costs because I had to allocate that money for advertising or marketing or paying my insurance, whatever it was. And so
hiring a new employee.
And hiring a new employee. So although I know I needed a coach, I needed guidance, I needed mentors in different areas for different points in my growth, it was always a struggle to find the money to do that.
Right.
And that's where I think Jessica is phenomenal in that in her client retention fund, the client has that pool to say, you know what, I've let it pool there for a while, and now I know I've identified that I need this in my business. And so if they don't have that consultant, we'll try to connect them with that type of consultant.
Well, and entrepreneurs, when they get into the business, it's not for them to do the business aspect, it's to do the passion of what they like doing. So if you're a contractor and you like building, you don't want to be doing payroll, you don't want to be doing HR, you don't want to have to be an expert in insurance. So it allows them to do what they love and be able to know that they have a resource that they can go to and not have to try to be the expert in all those. We can help guide them, find those different experts to help them through that.
Well, I think one of the things that, in my 30 years, what I've learned is that, as you pointed out, most entrepreneurs get in because they're a good plumber, they're a good dentist, they're a good groomer, but they don't know anything about business. And the ones that we're looking for, the good-hearted leaders that we've been able to identify, understand they don't know what they don't know. And they're out there looking for resources. The trouble that most of them deal with is that, how do you find somebody like that? They've all had bad experiences with a consultant or bad experience with somebody else. Their resources are extremely limited. And what we find is that they just don't know how to go about this. So when you set aside money for them that they're already spending, it really becomes a powerful vehicle for them to be able to take just an incremental change that can have a profound impact on their business. So for us, the Good Heart Leadership model is, you need to be able to have a culture first, and we've talked about that. And one of the things that you've been through my program, so you understand that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And wherever I'm in a culture where there is this disconnect in the vision, they don't have the relevant skills, they don't understand what needs to be done, the CEO becomes extremely frustrated because he doesn't know how to fix it. And so part of what we've been able to identify and why this partnership works well for us is that we're trying to put together a virtual team that can come into a client and really address the struggles that he or she knows they're dealing with, but they don't know how to fix it. And so this is really important. So if you can, one of the things that struck me about your organization in the first place is that you were the first organization that willingly did this. Tell us a little bit about that and how Good Heart culture moved you in this direction.
Sure. Well, we went through your program, and I still try to implement a lot of it, even with our new hires. I'd say the biggest thing that I got out of it was that we all have different personalities and we all have different strengths. And so I may think you're better fit here, but sometimes listening to your employees and seeing what their goals are or what they can bring to the table far exceeds even what you were planning or thinking for them. And so for me, it's been huge because we've totally restructured our company and moving different people, and it's nice to see things click for them to go to that next level where they have ideas, they want to find ways to cut cost, or they say, let's implement this, we can, I think we can reach more customers. And I would say a big thing is we deal with a lot of contractors, and construction's a fluctuating industry. They have slow months, as do others, but for us, it's how can we help them through those slow months. So if it is slow, then that's the time they should be with a consultant. How can we get you busy?
Right, yes.
Or why are you slow? What are the things that you're doing wrong? Why are your employees leaving you and then going somewhere else? Or, there's that big disconnect. So we're hoping that this avenue is going to help them see that we believe in them too, and you're paying something already, so this is something to give back. We grow if you grow. If you stay in business, then that means hopefully if we're doing our job right, then you're going to be staying with us to help do your insurances.
And if I can touch on the employee side, because I see two sides of this. One is most of the organizations, and it's not malicious. It's the CEO is so busy he doesn't have time to realize that he's got 12 people who are all saying, "Hey, I've got all these ideas," and nobody's listening. And to be able to make that transition is difficult for them because as much as they want to listen, their plate is completely full. I can remember a CEO telling me, "Ray, if you give me one more thing to do and take up one more minute of my time, we're done here. I can't do that." Having said that, the truth is when you're up to your assets and alligators, it's hard to remind yourself you're trying to drain the swamp. And part of what we want to do is that we've got these resources, these 12 people who say, "I know how to drain the swamp." And what we've learned is that 90% of the problems inside the organization, they have the answers for, but nobody's listening. And it's not malicious again, it's because they're just too busy. The other side of that, and this is where I really appreciate what you guys do and why I want to talk a little bit more about that, many times they don't even know what they don't have or don't need. So they have a capacity issue. And so part of what we try to do is, like on that side, we say, look, how do you get more capacity? And that's how, our linking has been so important, because we have the resources that have the capability to say, look, we'll structure this for you, and then we'll turn around and give it to the 12 people inside who are trying to drain the swamp and say, okay, this is how you implement this so we can get it done.
And as a business owner, structure it's the most important thing, but it's the one thing that we always push aside. Oh, I'll get to it. You're putting out fires. Yeah. And when you put that structure into a company, it's done wonders for us. So I know for other companies, it's definitely something that it relieves so much off of even the CEO, the business owner, because now it's an action plan. It's a call to action instead of just putting out fires left and right.
And I think if I can, one of the things I wanted to touch on with you, Ray, that you helped me with is that for all businesses, you got two bookends. And the bookends are always, how do I continue to get business? And I don't have time to be able to do that. And the other end is, how am I doing with the money I've got? And how many of them, don't know whether they're making money or not, and they're going out and selling more stuff that's losing money for them. And part of what, and if you can, Ray, help us a little bit with that, because I think structurally, that's where I benefited from our relationship. Explain a little bit from your perceptions and experience working with companies, how you've been able to break through some of that challenge for these guys.
Sure. Well, I think it leads back, you mentioned the bookends, but there's also one more foundation that I believe in wholeheartedly, and that's why we're here today. You and Jessica both believe in that, and that's the culture. And to me, the culture is the foundation. That's our vision, our values, and our mission, right? And then to have a sustainable business model, I believe growth, you have to have people coming in the door and buying your service or product. That's the growth side of it. How marketing, advertising, client retention, those types of things, right? And then once you get money in the door, what do you do with it? How do you make good financial decisions, not based on emotion, but based on facts, objective facts? And that's analyzing your numbers and your financials and having good coaches to help us there. When I first started, I had all kinds of mentors and coaches. So luckily, some were paid and some were through relationships. But for a business, most of us know the stuff in between. That's why we got started, because we're a good tradesman or we're a good chef, or that's our passion. It's those other things that we fail on so much. And that's where we really, as a group, I think it resonates, that the culture, your growth, and your finance. Once you got that nailed, now you can have a lot of other infill and fun. Right. I call it. And going back to a little bit about what you said, part of our culture is that everything we do is relational, and that's we've adopted the same culture in JS Platinum, the Corporate Advocate, and so I don't consider us a group of salespeople, and instead of paying people to come in and sell clients, we've developed consultants and educators on insurance and all that we do to educate clients, and now they can make an informed decision on what they want to do. And because we don't pay sales commissions out to our people, that's that client retention fund that Jessica sets aside to help their clients grow. So we believe in partnering with good-hearted consultants and leaders and organizations to help our clients grow and become successful. And when they do, we all do.
Now let's go back to an issue that on the culture that sometimes I think people go, well, what's culture, and what's that got to do with this? And I think one of the things that you passed on to me that I found helpful, and it was consistent with what we do, which is the dream manager. Because what they don't frequently understand is that they have all these solutions going on inside, and people are frustrated because they can't implement them. Tell us a little bit about the dream manager and how that kind of connects the culture in a very different, productive, and profitable way.
Well, the whole premise behind the Dream Manager, and I wish I knew the author's name so I can give him credit, but it's a phenomenal book. It's an easy read. But the whole premise behind it is this. There's a struggling janitorial company, and they realize that they're losing clients, and they're also losing employees, and they don't understand why. So even though they're experiencing some growth, they're staying stagnant or going backwards sometimes. So the CFO asked for permission to kind of analyze the situation and sees where it's at. How can we figure this out? How
What's
can we
the
fix
specific
it?
problem?
What's the problem?
Yeah.
And he says, I need to talk to our workforce, and that's where I need to start. So as he starts talking to the workforce, he learns that the first thing is they are having challenges because the company has clients that need to be serviced in the evenings or weekends or off hours, and some of these workforce that are blue collar and they're passionate, great people, but they're having challenges. Financial challenges, life challenges, transportation challenges. And when he researches, he learns that the bus lines don't always run on nights and the weekends. So they have challenges getting to work because a lot of them don't drive or have automobiles. And so he goes back and says, I want to implement a van pool and solve that problem. And the whole premise is when we talk to our workforce, we can learn that there's little things that we can help with. And part of our culture is when you invest in people, it never goes idle. It always comes back to you one way or another. And as an employer, what better way to than sit down with our workforce, who really becomes our business. As we step out and we become more of a leader and visionary, and that's the goal, it should be the goal, I think, at some point. How do we invest back into our workforce and listen to them? So the premise behind it is they did that, and they found out that there was little things they could help with that would go a long way. And some of the things were, it wasn't even about them or money. It was, you know, when they sat down and listened, it was, how do I get my son to college? I've never been to college myself, so I don't know how to get him there. And so the CFO decided he was going to become and hire a dream manager. And what it was to sit down and help coach people on life. And when they did that, they solved a lot of their ills. They started getting calls from their client base saying, I don't know what you're doing, but we've seen a change. Your people are on time. They have a great attitude. They're going above and beyond. And it just changed the whole dynamics of the company. And ultimately, it changed the bottom line of the company. And that's the whole premise. And I think that's what we're trying to accomplish.
And it goes back to my point, good heart leadership isn't kumbaya, it's money in the bank.
It is.
And as you pointed out, you know, it's not a lot. And when you talk about the resource reallocation, we're not asking for a lot of money. It's targeting, like you said, the specific skills deficits that are happening that engage that employee. The truth is, we know that turnover inside of a company is extremely expensive. And you know, my experience is that, you know, the company's either working with you or it's working against you. And so the more you can engage that, that's why the Dream Manager was such a fascinating story for me, because it really reinforced the very things that we're trying to accomplish here. You know, this has been illuminating. And what's really helpful, I think, you know, I'm curious, because I've seen it work inside of companies, but I'd like to know how it worked inside of some of the clients you have. So give me an example of how this transformative good heart leadership, it's not kumbaya, it's money in the bank approach, worked for the clients that you had.
Sure. There's a number of examples we can give, but there's one that comes to mind that Jessica has been really impactful in helping in their system and what they do. And it's a client by the name of Easy Seal Construction. Mm-hmm. And they came to us approximately 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And his company had shut down that he had worked for and been a foreman for the last 20 plus years. And he wanted guidance. He had been referred to us, and he wanted guidance on how to. He had client base that were left when that client folded their doors, and he wanted to know. He had the knowledge to serve them, but he didn't have the knowledge to get his business up and running. So we started consulting with him. We helped him get set up and got his corporation set up and got him licensed and got him the insurances. Well, over that 5 years' time, he's not only been very successful, but he's grown to a place where I believe they have 2 crews running and 20 men running, very profitable. And we've handled not only all of his, you know, some of the ancillary services, including the professional employer organization, outsourced HR and payroll and work comp, because he's a roofing classification is very tough in the work comp market. But Jessica has now educated him and serviced him on all his insurances. And I know he's had other people approach him, and he just doesn't want to leave. And Jessica's worked with him so much.
Well, I think a typical insurance agency is going to see he's licensed as a roofer, then we need to classify him as a roofer. And what he does, he sprays insulation onto wine
vats.
Wine vats.
Up in the center
and
of
so
California.
That's actually more of a painting classification. Mm-hmm. And so, sure, it would be easy for me to just say he's a roofer, you have to pay this large amount of money, and I make money off of it, so why wouldn't I have you go that route? Sure. But the reality is I know what he's doing, and so, you know, my underwriters came back, we'll prove it. How? What is he using? So, you know, he helped explain. I think that's our main goal, is to really want to know all the ins and outs of your business, because the better I can explain it to our carriers, the more willing they're able to provide credits. Right. Or look at it in different aspects of defining it as being high risk or low risk.
Right, right.
So that's really helped him to lower a lot of his insurance costs, help him with his employees to implementing certain safety measures so that could apply more credits for him. And he's a great tradesman. Mm-hmm. So his struggle was payroll, taxes, insurance, not knowing what to do, how to do it. And we found a good program for him for his work comp that allowed him to outsource those functions. And that's where Ray's company was able to do that. Why don't you tell them how you're able to do that?
No, we do that through a provider vendors. Again, one of our divisions is our professional employer organization brokerage, and as California's heat more compliance, more laws on small businesses, it's just hard for a small to mid-sized business, and when I say small to mid-sized, even a couple hundred employees have a hard time employing an $80,000 a year HR professional inside to guide them and direct them. So through an alternative work comp markets, we can look at evaluating and see if it's a good fit. And Jessica will say, you know, because of their history or their modification rate or some of those things, sometimes it's a better fit for us to analyze it with her to see if there's some savings we can do. And also is the mindset of the owner, I want to do this, but I don't want to do it in-house because it's too costly to hire. And it becomes overwhelming for an administrative assistant or somebody to try to do that without the full-time knowledge and support and system. So we're an alternative look at it. We've been able to provide that for them because, again, the insurance market can be brutal for startups or for people that have had some claims that have caused their modification rates to go up. And that's where we come in and we analyze it. Again, is it a fit? And based on what the owner wants. We're not good at selling, but educating, informing, and letting them make an educated decision is what we like to do.
Well, and this goes back to the point that I was making, is that most of the organizations that I work with don't have the internal capacity. In other words, it's not that they wouldn't like to, but they don't even know what it is. And so part of what you're doing and what we're trying to do is provide that external capacity that they don't have to hire on a full-time basis. They just find somebody that can fix the problem for them and then turn it over again to their employees and let them implement it in such a way that it works. One of the things that we talked about a little bit, and I think it's relevant to what you're saying, you know, we like to use assessment tools to help once we get in, because to your point, it's hard to fix something if we don't know what the problem is. And many times the CEO is kind of running blind. I like to think of him in the fog. The people that he's dependent on to give him information, he is still the king. And they will pass on information that they think he wants to hear instead of that he needs to hear. And so he's making decisions on partial or bad information. And so part of our role, in your role, is to say, no, here's an alternative for you to make this work for you more effectively so you can build the dream that you had instead of creating the nightmare of trying to figure out what am I going to do next, my people are leaving and things like that.
Can I add one last thing on that, Ray, because there is a tie-in and people don't get it a lot of times, is that your culture, over the last 9 years that I've been doing this, I've really learned that your culture does affect a lot of things in your business, including the bottom line, negatively or positively. For instance, a negative employee that has a negative feel or vibe about your company are more apt to file a fraudulent workers' comp claim.
Right.
Okay, and when that's filed, the system in California, for better or for worse, is on the employee's side, and the insurers, it's a lot easier to just pay it than to fight it a lot of times. Right. Okay, and for better or for worse, I'm not trying to, but what we found is with good-hearted leaders, we don't see that same thing.
No, and I think that's an extremely good point, because basically one fraudulent claim now strips out X number of dollars out of the company, which can't be then turned around to the people who are actually growing your business. And so what you're saying is very consistent with us. If I have a loyal employee, he can't even be approached by anybody else because he's there because this is his family. And that's the cultural side that we're trying to engage. Employees who are disengaged and unhappy, and one of the things we find when we start moving in this culture, those kind of people, they leave. I mean, you really force them out because there's no place for them to hide anymore. And so that's another one of these pluses of changing the culture. You attract people who are attractive, find your philosophy and what you're doing and your vision and their capacity to be able to say, gee, this guy solved my transportation problem, to use the Dream Manager as an example. You know, this has been extremely enlightening, and it's good to talk to the two of you. You know, what I'd like to conclude with here is that how do they reach you and what would be the value in it for them?
Sure. Well, for us at the Corporate Advocate, whether it's a startup or an established company that's experiencing some growing pains with their workforce or their modification rates or their HR, it's to be able to analyze, sit down and plan a strategy, and it's a long-term strategy, much like good-hearted leadership. It's not something that's going to change overnight, but evaluating if it's going to fit our model for them to work with us on outsourced systems for those things. And, we've helped small to large companies, and we have a client base that's pretty diverse. So if they'd love to talk to us, our number is 909-484-4203, and no pressure. It's just sit down and talk.
And website? Do you have a website they can?
It's www.tcacorp.com.
Thank you. And Jessica, tell us a little bit about how we can reach you if they have some interest in learning more.
If they have some interest, just want someone fresh eyes to review their insurance and see if there are anything, gaps or any exposures that are left on the table. We'd love to sit down with you. They can contact me at the office at 909-987-4520. They can also send me an email. My email is jessica@jsplatinum.com.
Thanks again. I really appreciate both of you coming in for this, and it's been very enlightening.
Thank you so much for having us, Ray. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, Ray, thank you so much for being on. We appreciate that.
Thank you. Again, this has been another episode of Good Heart Leadership, Catapult Your Business. It's not kumbaya, it's money in the bank. And what I wanted to leave you with here is that we're surrounded by good heart leaders all the time. And I'm blessed to have people like this who are willing and able to work in the business community to transform not only ourselves, but the people around us. If you can get into a good heart leadership and you begin to realize the power of all the cognitive reserve of those employees and start using them, it will transform your business. But it all starts with you as a leader. And so I'm going to encourage you to get a hold of us. You can reach me, Ray Anderson, at 951-634-6714. We have a class that's going on the 31st of Good Heart Leadership, which will give you the principles you need to be able to move your company to the next level and engage your employees and find those resources, that capacity that you need that you don't currently have. Thank you again. It's great, and I'll see you soon.
Anderson Business Coaching inspires extraordinary organizational results by engaging the talents of ordinary people. ABC opens the communication links from the top to the bottom of the organization to tap into an untapped reserve of creative ideas and solutions by the people who do the work every day. Secondly, we identify external resources that have the experience and capability to develop systems and processes that the internal staff can manage.